Welcome to Engage Your Tribe, a podcast about the art and science of audience engagement. I'm Jeremy Shere, and my guest is Steve Cummins, VP of Marketing at AirTame. Steve, it's great to have you on.
Hi, Jeremy. Nice to be invited. Thank you.
Engage Your Tribe is brought to you by Tribal Knowledge Podcasting. We're a full-service B2B podcasting agency, and we help brands use podcasting as a fun and efficient way to have authentic conversations with the buyers and decision makers you need to get to know to grow your business. You can learn more at tribknowledge.com. Okay, Steve, back to you. So tell us a little bit about yourself, about your background in marketing, and about AirTame.
Sure. So a little unusual. I actually started out as a chemical engineer, and I did that for a few years. And then I realized I was really more interested in the business side of things. So it took me a few years. I moved through business development to product management to product marketing, and then eventually to a general marketing role. So I definitely think of myself as a generalist marketer, I guess, rather than specifying it in anything. And I've always worked for tech companies, so that sort of brings the two things together. I from the engineering background, I've always enjoyed the technical side of things. So I've worked for a number of companies from semiconductors to electrical components, software, IT, and currently I'm with AirTame, which is in the AV field, and we actually make hybrid meetings easier for people. So we have some hybrid conferencing product or solution that we've just come out with, and a screen sharing solution, which is the original product. And yeah, AirTame, it's a Danish company based in Copenhagen, started up about 8 years ago. But the problem we're really trying to solve now, particularly with our new product, if you think about walking into a conference room, nobody wants to be the person who has to set up their laptop to run the conference call, whether it's a Zoom or Teams room. You don't want to be that person. You want somebody else to be doing it for you, and you just do the calls. So we're trying to make those hybrid conference calls much easier. And I've been there just under a year, and we got a lot of exciting things going on.
Okay, very good. Thanks for that. So now I know that you're engaged in building a marketing team. So what's your strategy for finding the right people who are not only going to be good at marketing, but who are going to help you build the kind of culture that you want to create?
Yeah, it's an interesting challenge. So one of the things I do like doing is coming into a company and building a team and putting the processes in place. Cultures vary a huge amount. So one of my stops in my career was with Panasonic. So it was a Japanese company, very formal, very hierarchical. So the kind of person that thrives in that is not the kind of person necessarily that would work well in a much more flexible environment. So I think the first thing is making sure that you have somebody who fits sort of the obvious part of the culture. But the other thing that I think is really critical is what is the growth stage of the and I sort of look at it as though there's three main phases. You have the startup phase, which is very much roll your sleeves up, get stuff done, do whatever it takes to make it happen. Then there's the growth phase or the high growth phase where, okay, now you've got to start getting some processes in place. You've got to build a much more solid foundation. You're obviously really trying to build up that revenue engine. And then you get to the sustaining established phase. So different people thrive in different parts of that. And you have to understand where you are in that process. So at AirTame, we're in the fast growth mode. So you're looking for people who've done it before. They know what they're doing. They want to come in, make a difference, make things happen. So I think finding that balance between do they fit the obvious culture, but do they also fit the stage that you're coming into? And most of that is just based on, I think a lot of it comes down to attitude. So a lot of times when I'm interviewing people, it's not really so much about, have you done this? Do you know how to do this specific marketing tactic? I'm really just trying to get into the attitude and how are they gonna react? Because in a growth phase, you don't know what's going to happen in the next 6 months, right? So you've got to be very flexible and just willing to get stuck in.
Yeah, absolutely. So what are some of the key roles that you need to hire for first?
Yeah, so obviously very rarely do you get the chance to come in and start from. So part of it will depend on who is in the team when you come into it. AirTame was interesting for me because it was a very small team. I had a product marketing manager and a web developer. But I would say in any organization, product marketing is probably the key because until you really understand the product and how people view your product, it's tough to do anything else. So I would start with really strong product marketing. The next part of it, particularly in the type of organization I tend to come into, is growth marketing, it comes under various names, right? Can be digital marketing, but somebody who really knows how to drive the right people to the website and then get them to actually go through the purchase cycle. And then once you've got that established, I would look at the content marketing. And part of the reason I go in that order, as you go down, it's easier to fill that gap with either freelance or agency help. So content, you can certainly get some of that going with agency help, but over time you need to bring it in house and really make it part of the discipline.
Yeah, for sure. So once you have those key roles in place, how do you start scaling up? Like, what's your strategy for going beyond sort of the basic core team?
Yeah, I think it sort of relates back to the earlier question, because I think a large part of that is to do with the people that you bring into the team. So
Hmm.
I'm generally looking for people who you're actually bringing in probably a little bit below where they are now, but it's somebody who's really interested in getting into that growth curve early and building something. So if you can bring people in who have done it before, but actually say, you know what, I'm really happy to take this first year, roll up my sleeves, build some of those foundational processes, get some stuff done, but then they also are able to sort of step back and think about the strategic side of things. Where do we need to be in a year? Where do we need to be in 2 years? What's the tech stack that we need to bring in because they've done it before? And then those are the people that can then effectively scale their own teams. So when I said, you need product marketing, you need a growth marketer, ideally you want somebody that is actually looking to be, hey, a year from now, I need to have a growth marketing team under me, or I need to have a content marketing team under me. And that's really how you build it. If you've got the right people in the discipline, then you allow them to scale the organization, sort of in parallel.
Yeah. So, as we all know, the search for talent has really changed. If anything, it's probably gotten more challenging, right? Workers
Sure.
have different expectations, different demands. How has all that, inspired by the pandemic, how has all that kind of changed the way that you're thinking about finding the right people?
Yeah, you're right. I think it does change. It changes the expectations, changes the skill set a little bit. It's always been nice if you've had people that can work independently. Now you really need to make sure that these are people that you can just say, hey, here's what we're trying to do. Now let's get it done. I think another part that had never been my strength until a few years ago is putting the processes and the tools in place. So, whether it's Asana or Jira or Monday or something along those lines, you've got to have a good system that brings everybody together. So the marketing team at AirTame now, so we have people in Copenhagen at our headquarters. We have an office here in New York. I'm actually in New Jersey, so I get into the New York office occasionally. We have somebody in Romania. So even if we were all back in the office, we would still be remote from each other. So you've got to have a good management tool like Jira, where everybody can see what's going on. You got to have good communication between the team, whether it's stand-ups. And I think you got to build trust between the teams. So one of the nice things about it, once a year, we fly everybody into Copenhagen to the head office for a week. It's called summertime. And it's, some work experience, some team building, some strategy sessions, but everybody gets to spend time no matter what their role is. So you really get to build, some of those strong relationships, which then when you get back to being in your home office or wherever it may be, you have that basis for it. So yeah, I think most of us like some level of remote working, hybrid working, working from home, whatever it may be, but you can't replace those strong bonds. And I think actually one of our executives here made a comment the other day, which I thought was really interesting. He said the problem during the pandemic was people found it easier to leave to go to another company, not because they didn't like where they were, but they didn't have those bonds anymore. They didn't feel like
Mm.
they were leaving friends. They were just leaving a job to go to another job. So I think it's really critical now we can start to travel again and we can be in offices again. You've got to find some ways to have that contact and for people to build those relationships, because that's, we spend a long time there. You don't want to just be dealing with other people. You want to be dealing with colleagues and teammates.
Yeah, right. Great point. It'll be really interesting to see in the years ahead how all that shakes out.
Yeah.
Probably we're not going back to everybody has to show up in person all the time. People just don't seem to want that. But at the same time, like you said, people also crave connection. So that'll be
Yeah,
interesting.
it has been really interesting. We just opened a new office in Manhattan, and it's an industrious workspace. We have our own suite of offices there. But it's really been an eye opener to me when we do get people in the office together, the interaction that you get. In some ways, I think to myself, well, that was a less productive day than when I'm at my home office, because you spend so much time talking to people. You're not actually
Yeah.
writing a document or whatever it may be. But the things that you get out of those ad hoc discussions and just that face to face it's really invaluable.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to quantify that stuff, maybe, but it in aggregate it really adds up and just helps forms bonds between
Yeah,
people, right?
really does. Yeah.
Yeah, obviously. So, okay, a few quick questions here as we wrap up. What's been your focus so far in Q1?
Yeah, so we have a really big product launch, which is this new hybrid conferencing solution. So we did a teaser in January for it. We've now announced the product, and then we're taking pre-orders at the end of this month. So from a marketing perspective, it's just been this sort of really hectic ramp up of getting the social content going, website, everything there is to do with a product launch. So that's been a big focus for Q1. But at the same time, because most of the marketing team have been with us, 6 months or less, we're still building the foundational processes and bringing in some of the tool sets. So we're trying to do the two things in parallel, which makes life really interesting. But yeah, busy Q1, although, I probably can't claim that Q2 is going to be any different. It'll be different, but it'll be busy with other things, I'm sure.
Indeed. So, next question, what are the top 3 KPIs that your boss focuses on?
Yes, it's something that I found really interesting when I joined AirTame. We work under this idea of a North Star KPI. So rather than over and above the idea of, well, what's our revenue, and look at all these individual numbers, we've defined this idea that we think really encapsulates, are we doing the right thing to grow the business? And it won't mean much to anybody who doesn't know the business, but it's this thing called how many active users on the AirTame cloud. And the idea being, it's not how many products are we selling or how many subscriptions do we have, but it's how many people are actively using the product every month. The theory being that if we get more people using it every month, your churn rate goes down, and clearly we have a product that people want to use and want to continue buying. So we sort of use that as the top level, and then we get into the regular things. ARR, annual recurring revenue, is big for us. We're sort of pivoting into be more of a subscription based service. So that's sort of the one big number that we. And then the other area that I'm really sort of championing with the help of folks on the team is looking at marketing qualified leads, converting to sales qualified leads, and then trying to link it through to how much opportunity and revenue comes from that. So that's one of those things we're still building, right? We're using Salesforce and we're trying to build those relationships in, but I really want to establish that as the main thing that tells the organization that marketing is doing what needs to be done to support the business.
Okay. And finally, what do you and your team hope to accomplish throughout this year?
Yeah, I mean, the first one really is this new product launch. It's a huge deal for the company, and if and when it's successful, it's a little bit of a game changer. So that's where I would say the bulk of our energy and focus is going to go. The company is growing fast. We're looking at 30 to 40% a year. So that means scaling everything, right? Building the processes, building the team. Our sales team is growing very fast, so we've got to support them. So it's really two things. At the end of the year, boy, that product really needs to be flying off the shelves. And I want to be able to look back and say, yep, we actually have a solid, scalable marketing function in place with the processes and the tools and the people. So it's gonna be a really interesting year. My first year with AirTame was fascinating and went quick, and I feel like this year is going to be more of the same. So yeah, really exciting.
Wonderful. Well, it sounds like you have an exciting year ahead, a lot of great stuff happening. So, Steve, thanks a lot for sharing all that and for a really great discussion. Really enjoyed it.
Yeah, thanks, Jeremy. It's really nice to have a conversation with you. Thank you.